Thanks, David. I'm already a bit disoriented. But anyway, so this is Sharing is Caring. Don't hold your knowledge hostage. And parenthetically, don't be afraid to ask questions. For those of you who don't know me, I'm JD Flynn. You can find me on all the Slacks as Dorf, on Twitter at JDDoesDev, and on Drupal.org as Dorficus, because Dorf was already taken when I signed up. I do have a couple disclaimers. For one, there are a couple of accessibility issues with this talk. I have some images. I will do my best to describe them or read the text on them for those of you who may not be able to see them for whatever reason. Also, try to keep things PG-13. PG-13 allows for one F-bomb and tasteful nudity. I'm going to forego the nudity, and in case a second F-bomb comes out, please forgive me. All right. Who am I? I am a technical architect at Genuine. We're a full-service marketing agency in Boston. I'm also a mental health advocate and speaker for open sourcing mental illness. You may have seen one of my talks at various camps before the current events happened. Recently, I was brought on to the Drupal community working group as a subject matter expert in mental health. I work alongside Dr. Michelle Drapkin, and it's a real honor to be part of that. I'm a big fan of helping others, which is one of the reasons I put on this talk. And I'm a big fan of making music, as you may be able to see by my background that I didn't blur out. With some of my coworkers, we put together a virtual band, and just a quick screenshot from one of the videos we did where I was multiplying myself. All right, if you walk out of here or close the window out of here with two things, these are what I would like you to remember. One, everyone was a beginner at some point. Everybody. Nobody was born with all the knowledge of programming or anything. And everyone knows something that someone else doesn't. That's it. These are the two things. If you want to leave right now, you got the gist of my talk. I do have more. Please don't leave, but this is what I want you to get from this. So aside from those two, how do we get there? Today we're talking about who can offer help, how to ask for help, how to give and share your knowledge, where you can go for help, and why you should share your knowledge. Since all good talks begin with a quote, I also have one by Sir Karl Popper, a British-Austrian philosopher. All life is problem solving. And since all good presentations have a meme, I also have this. By sharing your knowledge, you are helping with half the battle, because knowing is half the battle. XKCD is one of my favorite comics, and this talk is loosely based on this panel right here. And it's boiled down to, don't make fun of people for not knowing things, because it is an opportunity to teach. It's a great chance to tell people, hey, you don't know this? I can't wait to introduce you to it. Thank you for that, Brittany. The link is there, and you just made it clickable for anybody who wants to look, because I did not put the title text on here. But with some math, I don't know how scientific it is, but every day, on average, 10,000 people in the US are hearing something for the first time. That's 10,000 people, 10,000 opportunities to make somebody's day and teach them something they didn't know. Something that a lot of people have a hard time with is that it's okay to ask for help, really. It doesn't matter where you are in your career, what level you are, what letters are behind your name. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to admit you don't know something. And it's also okay to share knowledge, even if it's your first day of programming. Even if you just wrote your first hello world, maybe you wrote it in such a way that somebody might be interested in learning. Maybe somebody who hasn't reached that first day might come to you and ask, how did you do that? It's okay. However, if you're not 100% sure, please don't be definitive, and I'll get into that in a little bit. If you are 100% sure, don't be condescending about it. And I'll also get into that a bit. And what I mean by don't be definitive, there's a book called The Imposter's Handbook, nice picture of it here, that was written for those of us who got into programming, got into coding, but didn't necessarily have a formal education in it. And Rob Connery put together this handbook that has a lot of programming principles and concepts that explains it to people who maybe didn't get that aspect of things. Sure, we know how to write methods, classes, functions, all that, but we didn't really get to the nitty-gritty internal workings. And this spreading ignorance is my true nightmare, which is huge, because if somebody relays information as fact that are not fact, if they say X is definitely X or X is definitely Y, and they're wrong, everybody that they've told X is definitely Y to now has that wrong information, and that needs to be corrected by other people. That needs to be taken back. So you're not just making life more difficult for the person that you are giving bad information to, you're making life more difficult for people who have to correct that bad information and reteach the people who have learned the wrong things. It is okay to say, I think this is it, but I might be wrong. It's okay to say, maybe you might want to check this out, but if you're going to say, I definitely have the answer and it is this, then make sure you're absolutely correct on that, or it could cause headaches for a lot of people. So why ask for help? Several reasons, and this is a loaded question, but it's because nobody knows everything. Accept it. Nobody knows everything. Even the people who say they do, they don't. Why should everyone share their knowledge? Again, nobody knows everything. These are great opportunities to help people know more. Now, we have a lot of great resources where we can share knowledge or we can ask for help. Slack, Stack Overflow, Google, GitHub, Drupal, IRC if you are old school. I don't even know if the Drupal IRC channel still exists. Maybe somebody is still hanging out on there, or the chatbot still lives there. Reddit, surprisingly, the Drupal Reddit is pretty useful. And there are a lot of others. There's YouTube. There, just anywhere that you could find information. And one thing I didn't put on here, but kind of ties into GitHub, Stack Overflow, and Drupal, is that creating issues and asking questions in itself is a way to share knowledge. Because if you're running into something, say on a Drupal module or an open source project, you're running into a problem that nobody else has run into, if you put that in the issue queue, then you're creating documentation, you're sharing knowledge that, hey, this has happened to me. I've experienced it. You're not a complete edge case, and you're validating the fact that they're asking for something and they didn't necessarily do something wrong. I think that any chance to open up an issue of something that isn't quite making sense, and if it's working as designed, then you found that out too. Maybe you need to go about doing things in a different way. So I created a couple of friends. Well, I stole a couple of friends for this talk to give some examples because I didn't want to use any real person names for these examples. Meet Arthur Dent. He likes to complain. He doesn't like to admit when he's wrong. He's not a big fan of travel. He is a survivor, but sometimes forgets his towel. And we have Marvin the android. who has a brain the size of a planet, so he's always willing to help, very good at communicating, but not necessarily thrilled with his lot in life. So now that we've met our cast of characters, let's talk about how to ask for help. A few things I'd like you to remember when you're asking for help, when you're on GitHub, when you're on Slack, anywhere, is that the person helping you or people helping you most likely are not getting paid to do it unless you are paying for a service. The person also has other things that they could probably be doing rather than sitting and helping. Oftentimes a complete stranger, oftentimes somebody that they just have an acquaintance with. But with that being said, the people who are in those areas, they want to help you most of the time. They are there because they want to give back. So when you're asking for help, a couple of tips: be respectful. That's a huge one. Please be clear and concise. Give as much information as possible within reason. And I say that within reason because there's such thing as too much information that makes it harder to answer. Be patient. When you're asking for help, please be patient. And before you do that, make at least an effort to solve the problem on your own before you just dive in and ask somebody to solve it or help you solve it. So being respectful. Arthur here jumps into Slack. Hey jerks, any of you smart enough to figure this one out? That's not necessarily respectful. That's not really what is going to entice me to want to help this person. However, Marvin, hey everyone, I'm having an issue with my foo not running the bar when I baz. Anyone run into something like this before? That's a little bit more respectful. It's not calling anybody names, it's not demanding, just asking a simple question. So don't be an Arthur. And if there are any Arthurs watching this, I apologize ahead of time. I'm referring to this character, not you. Be clear and concise. So this is a lump of text that basically gets down to, I got an error, what happened? And all these examples are hyperbolic, hopefully. And he tells his life story of the day, but all we get down to is, I got an error, what happened? That's neither clear and obviously not concise. Marvin, on the other hand, has this question: can anyone help me with which service I should be using to get data from an entity within a controller? Know exactly what he's asking. Maybe he didn't do the research, didn't type that into Google first, but that's one that somebody will most likely be able to answer. Again, don't be an Arthur. Give as much information as possible within reason, and I stress within reason. This time Arthur is being respectful, clear and concise with part of it, having an issue with a node package and can't figure it out, but he has pasted his entire yarn lock file in. And if you're not familiar with yarn lock or composer lock or any lock files, basically it is a giant file that keeps track of every package, every dependency of every package, and all the information that you don't need about your node packages or composer packages or what have you. So he pasted the entire thing in, and Slack said, no, we can't fully display this message. And so it's probably one of those cases of too much information. Marvin, on the other hand, clearly states he's using Doxel. His CLI container is not showing the files that he's expecting, and he pastes in the relevant output of fin config. Now, Doxel is a local development environment, runs off of Docker and containers. It's what I use, so it's what I'm most familiar with. But he put in the file that most likely would have the information that he needed, just a little snippet of it specific to that CLI container. That's going to help somebody. Maybe somebody will look and see, oh, well, one of your volumes is named incorrectly. You're using a wrong setting there. In this case, again, don't be an Arthur. Be patient. Right now, I'm testing your patience for me to continue on by taking a drink. I was guilty of this when I first got into asking for help online. Many people are guilty of this, and I see it on a weekly, if not more frequent basis. Somebody will come in, they've never been in the channel before, or they've been off for quite a while and just pop in when they need something. Can anyone help me? Anyone? Wake up. Of course, my favorite GIF from Caddyshack. And then they get mad when somebody doesn't answer them within a minute. Again, people on Slack, for the most part, are doing it for free in their spare time or in between project builds. Be patient. If somebody can answer, they're going to answer when they can. I don't really have a Marvin example because that would just be him sitting and waiting. So again, don't be an Arthur. A couple other Arthurs that you should probably not be, or try not to be, are the I want to reinvent the wheel Arthur. If most likely when you're asking questions of or have an idea, and if somebody says, well, this already does exactly what you're describing, maybe take that advice. Not saying that it's bad to reinvent the wheel occasionally, but in this example, I'm using web form, and Arthur wants to build a module that lets you create a form on the web and save all the data that you could look at. So it's exactly what this already built, tested, tried and true module does. But he doesn't want to hear that it's been done. The do it for me Arthur. This is the kind, or the when somebody goes in and asks a question, but they haven't done any work and they don't want to do any work. They basically want to find somebody to do free labor for them. So they go in, give a problem that may or may not look like business requirements, and expect somebody to just write out the answer for them. I've seen this a lot with students, honestly, looking for bubble sorts. I've seen somebody before come in and asking if somebody will write them a bubble sort function. And 9 times out of 10, if not 99 times out of 100, the only reason somebody is writing a bubble sort is probably if it's an assignment and they're supposed to be learning how to do similar things to that. And the right answer is wrong. In this, Arthur has a question of how to update the schema of a custom entity in the database. How does this happen? Well, if you're familiar with the PHP side of Drupal, hook update n, hook update or hook post update name are the two that you should use. But Arthur doesn't want to hear it. He read the Google search results, and just the little snippet underneath the headline didn't say exactly what he wanted to read, so he is not happy about it. If you're asking for help, then there's got to be a bit of trust between you and the group that you're asking for help, that you are expecting them to have some sort of expertise. So trust that they are not going to steer you down the wrong path. I don't think anybody's really going to sit on Slack and troll just to give wrong answers. It's possible, but I like to have a little bit more faith in humanity than that. Now, the title of my talk is Sharing is Caring. Sharing goes both ways, but it's hard to share knowledge if the questions aren't correct. So let's get into sharing. Some tips for sharing knowledge may look familiar, Be respectful, be clear and concise, give enough information, be patient. And a big one that I added on here is empower the person to learn something. And yeah, David, that's a really good point. English as a second language, especially with a global community like the one that we work with, it's sometimes hard to discern between, is this person being rude or is this person not using their native language when asking a question. So trying to give people the benefit of the doubt as somebody answering questions is definitely helpful, but pretty soon within a couple of interactions, you'll be able to tell whether or not this is, a Marvin or an Arthur. Okay. Be respectful. Let's go back to our friends here. This is something that Arthur would say. RTFM. How many of you in the chat are familiar with this? Seeing a couple messages come through. Yeah. So this is not something that you should ever tell somebody because it's rude. It's disrespectful. It's basically saying that I don't want to help you. Odds are that somebody's asking for help. Most of the time, they've already done a little bit of research. They've already looked into it. Maybe they don't understand the manual because I don't know about you, but the man pages on Linux are highly confusing sometimes. Sometimes the documentation is a little bit lacking. So maybe the manual isn't always the best, most human language. So please don't tell anybody RTFM. If you don't feel like helping, just don't answer. Other people will jump in. Also this one, does anybody recognize this screen? Yeah. Let me Google that for you, which is fun sometimes. But if somebody is coming in to ask for help, again, most of the time, they've already gone to Google. They've already typed it in. Maybe their Google foo isn't as strong as yours is. Maybe they just don't know what the magic words to get to what they're hoping to find are. But seeing somebody type in, here's a link to let me Google that for you, that's another rude one. It's passive aggressive. It's the most passive aggressive tool ever made, if you can even call it a tool. Right, that's a good one, Anna. How can you Google what you don't know? And odds are, and I know I saw this link thrown my way when I was first starting out. I went in, asked a question, and this was on IRC, and instead of offering help, it was RTFM or a link to let me Google that for you. Both of them really turned me off to that method of communication and just that chat format in general. All right, so let's get into being clear and concise. Marvin has a problem. He can't remember what a function is. He's looking for a hook, but instead of just directing, Arthur wants to help, but he's taking the long way around, and almost to a level of passive aggressive trolling. First, open your editor, go to a file, find an empty line, and then goes into, all right, now start typing the word function. Who knows? Maybe he's trying to help out, but it's not clear, it's not concise, and it can be taken as insulting. When the tables are turned, though, Marvin gets in and gives a clear and concise answer, doesn't directly do the work for him, but says, this is what you're most likely looking for. In this case, hook entity pre-save. Excuse me one second. Sorry. Chris, that's a really good point. Yeah, if you are going in and asking something, hey, I've already tried looking for this. I didn't come up with any results that I was hoping for. In fact, it just led me down a rabbit hole in the wrong direction. can anybody help me maybe find the right direction to go in? So yeah, that's really great. So again, don't be an Arthur. If you're trying to help somebody, try to give enough information, not necessarily solve the entire problem for them, but give enough information. Marvin's has the same question. And Arthur, snarkily, just responds with, well, what you need is a hook. That's not helpful. So if you can't give somewhat of an answer to help out, then maybe let somebody else, or check what your intentions may be. On the other hand, Marvin, familiar with it, when Arthur asks his question, can you tell me what I should do to change something before node save? Marvin links to the docs. Hook entity pre-save is great. Here's the documentation, and maybe look there for some help on it. That'll get you going. It's Marvin. Of course he's going to sigh. So in this case, don't be an Arthur. This one, a new friend, Zaphod, comes in, pretty new to Drupal. He's asking for some help, and then Arthur has to get in and get really snarky, just call him a noob. That's not really patient. That's not really helpful. That's not respectful. But Arthur helps out a little bit and gets to a point where he gets Doxel running, go Doxel, and he's got the Drupal stack going. What else do I need to do? And for some reason, Arthur just doesn't want to help anymore. He kind of goes off, and you still don't know what you're doing. This is horrible. I'd rather have a hangover from the Pangalactic Gargle Blaster than try to help you one more minute. If I think people will understand if they're asking questions, if you have to leave, again, people are doing this, are helping usually for free in their own time. If you say, sorry, best of luck, I've got to step off to go do something, most people will understand, and hopefully you've given them enough direction to maybe pick up the ball on their own. What I would prefer is don't be mean about it. So don't be an Arthur. Empower to learn. I couldn't think of a good example chat-based for this, but one of the first contribution/sprints that I attended, I was getting a lot of help, but nobody was giving me the exact answers. And the reason was, if I tell you what to do exactly, you're not going to learn anything. But if I tell you where to go to learn it, then it's going to be ingrained, and you'll have a better understanding of it. And that stuck with me. That wasn't just somebody saying, do X, Y, Z. It was exactly, teach me to fish. And I learned so much by doing that. And I've tried to carry that over, being a technical architect now, in people that I'm kind of helping grow. Make sure that they have the ability, that they're empowered to try and fail, come back, ask questions, and try again. It's okay to fail. In fact, fail as much as you want, as long as you don't take down prod. Fail as much as you can, make mistakes. I will be around to help you. And some other helping Arthurs. And I say helping in quotes. Feigned surprise. Excuse me. So Feigned surprise, there's a good article that I will link to at some point. I'm sorry, I don't have it in the presentation, but it's about feigning surprise and how that helps nobody. You know, when somebody says, "Oh, I've never heard of X," and you go, "What do you mean you've never heard of this? How can you not have heard of this? This is so amazing to me that you've lived your entire life not hearing of this." Instead of feigning surprise, take it as an opportunity to introduce them to something new. Let's go back to that XKCD comic. Somebody just told you they don't know something that you do. Share that knowledge, teach them something new, and get excited over it. Yeah, Adrian, that is a really, really good thing. And that was a thing for me. I had a hard time reading tutorials and doing the steps by step. But when I would watch a video of something, or if somebody were to guide me a little bit, just I forget, it's didactic and audio learning. I forgive the terminology leaving my brain right now, but yeah, there are different ways to learn. So yeah, that's a great point. But yeah, don't feign surprise. Take it as an opportunity to help somebody and introduce them to something absolutely amazing. So big question, who can share knowledge? Who can ask for help? These both have the same answer. Everybody. Everybody can ask for help. Everybody can share knowledge. Everybody knows something that someone else doesn't. And nobody knows everything. Why would anyone share knowledge with others, though? I mean, this is a big thing. Why would anybody take that time out of their day to help other people? Why should anybody sit on Slack or sit on IRC or go into Stack Overflow answering questions? Yeah, that's a really good answer, to make a better web. Well, I did a survey, got back some really good answers. The data was a little bit limited as far as the numbers questions, but some of the quotes that came back were amazing. Why should anyone share knowledge with others? As a token of appreciation to the Drupal community of which me and my employer profit a lot and provide in my daily doings and for my family. This is huge. Drupal's free. Open source is free. There is so much free software out there that we can just grab and do pretty much anything we want with. Taking the time to help somebody else is, just a way of giving back. One quote is, "Knowledge shared is knowledge squared." I don't know who to attribute that to, but yeah, that's it. Okay, question came in. How do you differentiate your communication style tone between working with an upper academic level client user owner who is new to Drupal and a wannabe coding student who is new to learning Drupal? Just a little, the pedant in me wants to take out that word wannabe, because somebody getting into coding, somebody trying to learn, anybody, I don't think that they're really wannabe. I think they're just trying to get into it, and if they're really trying to learn something. So that in itself is a very good skill to have. If you have CTO of a company that you're working with as a client who understands programming, and you want to say, well, we need to do some calls to the service container to inject dependencies, blah, 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 technobabble, versus, okay, so I want you to think of the service container as something where services live that we can call on, and we can pull those and use them as we need to and keep a cleaner code base. So yeah, being able to separate that is a skill that you have to build. I can't really say how to do it, but just having a feel and a rapport with whomever you're speaking with is going to be huge when it comes to that. Sorry about that. Excuse me. Another quote that I got: helping in itself is often a way of learning. Given a question, even when you don't know the answer, gives you some direction in how to find an answer and learn along the way. This was a big step into Drupal 8 for me at release. This is huge because, yeah, I've learned more from trying to help others, from helping others, from asking questions and interacting with people than I did from any schooling, any tutorials, any videos. Even if I don't know the answer, and I suggest this for all of you, if you don't know the answer, it's okay to answer. It's okay to say, I don't know, but come with me, we're going to figure it out. Yeah, so this quote was amazing to me. Because sometimes when I ask a question, I find that the answer has been staring me in the face. Putting my problem into words to explain someone else helps me solve it for myself. This is great as well. If you're familiar with cardboard developers or rubber ducky developers, it's basically talking to a brick wall could take the place of whomever you're speaking with. You know, I can't count how many times I have had an issue, called up somebody that I work with. Hey, can we talk for a second? I've got this problem. Let's figure it out. And 3 minutes into the conversation, after I verbalized it into something coherent that somebody else may be unable to understand, I have that moment where I'm, oh, I've already solved my problem just by explaining it to you. Thank you for your service. I'm going to go take care of this now. And that's a great feeling, just being able to solve it. So let's recap. It's all right to ask for help. It's all right to offer help, even if you're not an expert. Really, your first hello world is enough for you to help somebody else who hasn't written hello world. Don't be a jerk. Don't expect anyone to do the work for you. Do be respectful. I can't stress that enough. Please be respectful. Say thank you. Most people don't want anything more than a thank you. Most people don't even want to thank you. They just like the feeling of helping others. And helping others builds a community. It builds your own skills. It gives you a warm, fuzzy feeling. What I didn't put on here is it also kind of builds community karma, because if you're active on, say Slack or the issue queue or Drupal.org or GitHub, wherever, if you're active, then people see that you're helping out. When you have that question, people are going to turn around and say, hey, they helped me with something. I happen to know what they're asking. I gotcha. So yeah, please share your knowledge as much as you can. I want to thank all of you for listening. I really wish that I could see all of you in person. Shake your hands, fist bump, elbow bump, high five. Hopefully we'll get back to that soon. There's a link to the survey up at the top of the chat, and I want to open it up for the next 5 minutes for questions. Because I am here to share knowledge, but only for 5 minutes. Oh, thank you all. No, I haven't frozen. I'm just watching the chat. Thank you. You're all amazing. Thank you for coming to this, really. And also, if any of the organizers are watching this to edit it, please say thank you to the organizers. I can only imagine what they had to go through to put this thing together. Lana, that's a great question. Occasionally, you got to walk away. One of the questions I had in my survey, but I didn't post the answers because it was hard to pick a good one, was at what point do you just say no more? I can't help you. And it's a hard decision. At some point, you do unfortunately have to say, listen, this is the best I can do. Maybe you need a little bit more help than what I can provide. So here is, for lack of a better example, here's a link to Drupalize Me. Here is here's a beginner guide, which can be taken insulting, but I mean, you can't spend an entire week trying to help somebody when they can't get past the opening PHP tag. So it's really, as much as it's a judgment call, and it's definitely a tough judgment call. Brittany's asking, any tips to overcome anxiety about asking questions or just overthinking out how to ask a question in general? Boy, I wish, because that was a big thing for me. And I think that stems from at least some level of imposter syndrome, where people feel that if they ask a question, it's going to be seen as a sign of weakness, which it isn't, because I'm sure, I can't speak for him, but I'm sure that Dries has questions. I'm sure that, anybody that we look at as Drupal developers, and as the people at the top who have been around, who know the most, they're still going to occasionally have a question of how do I do this? So never be afraid to ask questions. Never. It's not weakness. You're going to learn more. It took me a long time to come to grips with that. But asking questions, saying you don't know something, is not weakness. It's actually, from what I found, a lot of people will look at you with more respect for saying, hey, I don't know this. One interview that I had looking for a job was, that's a good point, Liam. Yeah, not being able to ask questions is a weakness. Not to be confused with having anxiety about asking questions. But, I flat out said, I don't understand dependency injection, because at the time I didn't. That is my weakness. That's my kryptonite. It's something I need to work on, but I just haven't had a chance to. So it's okay to say you don't know something and ask questions about it. Scrolling back, we have, looks like 1 minute. The next question was from Dallas. In the context of facilitating teaching an online class, do you have any tips on how to establish a community of learning where participants are eager, willing to share their knowledge, support each other's learning? Honestly, I've never done anything like that, so I can't really give any advice. I'm sorry. Next one. How can we make an environment more comfortable, safe to ask questions? I think, and not to toot my own horn, but being respectful, showing that the community is open is a great step. I mean, if people walking in the door of the community see that everybody's shaking hands, getting along, people are asking questions, answering, nobody's fighting, that's going to be a lot better than if anybody who asks questions is shut down, or made to feel, without being called an idiot, but made to feel like an idiot just for asking. All right. And it looks like time. Oh, well, thanks, David. Looking up, I think, David, your question was the last one. So yeah, with that, thank you all. I'm going to stop the recording, stop sharing, but I will be around for the remainder of the week. So feel free to reach out to me. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. And, thank you for coming into my home.